All right. Anthony Hootie Russo. What's happening, man? How you doing?
Not much. Pleasure to be here, John. I'm actually glad I got to meet you. It wasn't that I knew about you, but for some reason I did know about you, but it's very weird. And then when you wrote to me, you put your last name.
Yeah.
And I'm an automatic, I'm a homework guy. I'm an encyclopedia guy.
Yeah.
And I went down the rabbit hole.
Okay.
This guy's a professional bodybuilder.
No, I've never.
He gets a little out of line. He might have to get the Louisville Slugger. He's got, and then we had the conversation, and you explained to me how it worked.
Dude, you have to see what the guys look like that turn pro. Just like every other athlete, like every other. You like baseball, right?
Yeah.
So the baseball players of today are athletes, right? And from 50 years ago, there's no comparison. It's the same thing with bodybuilding. Like if you look at Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime, and you will look at what Mr. Olympia, he's an Egyptian guy, and they call him Big Ramy. What he looks like now, he looks like a mutant. He's 5'10", and when he's not on stage, he's 350 pounds.
What?
Yeah, I swear to God.
Pure muscle.
And
no body fat.
Now on stage, he's 300 pounds, chiseled, striations everywhere. And he's 5'10".
So 6 months he'll be dead of a heart attack.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Bottom fucking line.
Yeah.
Because you're telling me Egyptian. I'm thinking 4'11" tops.
No.
You tell me this guy's the bodybuilder, the Mr. Olympian. I'm like, are we talking about the right race here?
I'll send
I'm not
you.
politically correct either.
Don't worry about it.
I'm talking about 5 dozen of them carrying around, Liz Taylor. On the market, you know what I mean?
Right,
Are you kidding me? 5'10", 300 pounds.
Dude,
that sounds like somebody's Mona.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I'll send you a picture of him. It's freaky.
It's funny because I'm very, very big into that. Very athletic, ran leagues, baseball, football, just love sports all the way around.
Right.
Didn't start enjoying working out until I went away, and I even hated it then because it's like you have to because there's nothing else to do. I was always the one that hated to do the things because you had to do them.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a gym in Deer Park. Anthony Scalise, that was his this gym was like a gym where bodybuilders and personal trainers went to work out when they were done doing whatever they did. It was 24 hours.
Yeah, it
was right by the Tanga outlets, right by the that miniature golf thing, whatever that kind of golf, they got some kind of golf. I'm not a big golf guy.
Right.
And he was the guy, like, I guess he was an Italian guy. He was a really nice guy. He'd actually be like working with these millionaire guys from that area, teaching them, because I guess with gyms like that, they attach their name to guys that won something, but he just happened to be a sweetheart. Cause I was big on conditioning. So I'd be doing arms. I'll be working on my hands. I'm hanging from the towel I used to box. I'm hanging on the towel, working on my jaw. And he would come by and be like, hey, bud, look, do it like that. But most guys wouldn't. And he has a ton of awards. He won a bunch of stuff out there. And he happened to be a really nice guy. Well, he was ripped to shit.
Yeah. It's the gym in Queens that, I don't even know if it's still there, that was relatively famous, was Coliseum. I don't know if it's still there or not. Coliseum Gym was like the gym, but now everybody goes to Bev's in Long Island. Bev Francis.
What's it called?
It's Powerhouse. Bev Francis.
Powerhouse.
Yeah.
I see girls walking around Powerhouse jackets.
Yeah. No, it's the truth. It really is.
What are you trying to tell me? Your boyfriend's big?
Yeah.
He can't fight. He might be big, but he ain't beating me up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be around till he gets tired. Then
that's it. That's all right.
Like, we've been beating those guys up our whole lives in the club. So I'm not worried about your boyfriend. She got like a 6. She's like 5'2". She's got a 6X powerhouse jacket.
Yeah. Listen, there's a difference between somebody who's violent and somebody who could fight. And and I would rather have somebody who's violent on my side.
Yeah.
Because
always.
Yeah, exactly. Big difference.
Well, you know that. Listen, there's guys that are strong, and there's guys that know how to use it.
Right.
So it's cool. But no, it's just jumping down this rabbit hole. I got more than enough time. I hope you do too. But it was nice to have met you. Like I said, we didn't really, besides today speaking, and then me looking and actually finding out that you're actually a Brooklyn guy. So it was pretty cool.
All right, cool. Thank you, man. Thank you very much. All right, so You're Sicilian. Your parents are from Sicily? Or
Yes.
Your father?
Yes. Whole family.
Okay.
Everybody.
Where in Sicily?
My father came here in 63, almost 64.
Okay.
The youngest sibling, my uncle, he was the youngest. My nonna was pregnant with him and she wanted to have an American baby. Mm-hmm. My grandfather, listen, for those days, they were called men, but they were fuck ups. He was a drinker, wasn't sending the money back. You know how it was. The immigrants came here, sent the money home. So my father and his other brother, my father was the oldest. They've been working since they're 5. So the father just stopped sending money home and they were just supporting the mother. Like they would come home and just, back then, like my father would tell me stories. They would both come home and they would hand their mother their paychecks and then she would give it out to them as an allowance. And this, their sisters, their brothers, the food, the bills, and if there was a little left over to get a little bit at the end of the week, then they got lucky.
Yeah, right.
Most of the time, it was like every other month. Because money wasn't that good,
That's typical for immigrants. That's usually how it works,
Yeah.
What part of Sicily is your family from?
My father, their house and where they lived, because my nonna and my papa went back. Right before my mother died, my father got sick. Bartonico. They had a house in Bartonico, right outside Palermo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My father's family was from Puzzalo, which is all the way down South Sicily.
Yeah.
There's still
you didn't think you could get any more south than that, right? Because you get really Bartonico, like there's farm, and then there's the ocean. You're like, where else can you go? And then your town is like, I think it's like what, west south, right?
So, it's on the beach. Yeah.
Like you go west and then you go down even further.
Yeah. I think there's I'm pretty sure there's still the social club in downtown Brooklyn, the Puzzalo Social Club. I'm pretty sure it's still there.
Yeah, the one on President Street.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's the last one. It's actually why it's Sicilian. It's a banana. It's been a banana social club
for
really? 100 years. Someone brought it up to me and they were like, I live in Brooklyn. They're like, do you go down? I'm like, every time somebody mentions the only social club left in Brooklyn, they mention President Street. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, it's a Sicilian club, of course.
Yeah.
And it was a real deal club, but it was a lot of old timers.
Yeah.
Like they used to say Joe Banana used to frequent there.
Oh, I didn't know. I know the club is still there. My family, my mother's family was Galabrese. My father was Sicilian. They were all from, they call it Red Hook, but it was Carroll Gardens, right? And now it's all hipsters and yuppies and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then
now it's Stuyvesant Heights.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then they bought a house in Bensonhurst. And then in the 90s, we moved to Staten Island. But anyway, let's talk about.
So from Stuyvesant, but you say, Carroll Gardens wasn't too nice until Mark opened up the pizzeria there. The Callie's, you ever eat it? It's probably McCallie's. It's probably one of the best pizzas I've ever eaten. And
really, I don't know.
He owned the building. He's actually a really nice guy, and he went around to Dom and all these, the Pharaohs, Dom from the Pharaohs and L&B and Totino's. He actually makes a meatball that's unbelievable. Okay. He's related to the food boss, and he had a building. He didn't know what to do with it, so he opened the pizzeria.
Really?
And listen to me, it's second to none, one of the best pizzas.
How long ago was this?
And he's got to have it like 15 years now. But he opened it up with no pizza experience.
Really?
And now, like he said, he was walking into the building one day and there was huge commotion and it was 1,000 people. And he walks inside and Jay-Z and Beyonce are sitting down. He goes, now I know I made it.
Of course. Yeah.
And he makes a meatball while you wait, because now the weight's through the roof. He's got a brick oven. Amazing meatball. He's a great cook. He's really just a knock-around guy. You'll see him in the batting cage in Coney Island smoking a cigarette, hitting the ball around. In Carroll Gardens. But why not say Bedford Stuyvesant? Why not say?
I don't know. We always call it Red Hook
Gardens.
Or we always call
because it's connected. But Bedford Stuyvesant and Carroll Gardens, we're talking about two different
worlds. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So I'm like, maybe it's just me, but like, I know you come from that area a little bit more than me, but I know the areas pretty well. And
Carroll Gardens. President Street, Carroll Gardens. Well, my parents always called it Red Hook.
Because Red Hook, they were giving the brownstones away in the 80s for $1.
Yes.
My brother worked for housing.
That's right.
So I remember that. And they're like, but you got to pay for it to get put up to code.
Yeah.
But then you had all those politicians and all the big shots in the city and the comptrollers that knew about it. and they held on to them, and they sold them for $7 million a few years
ago. Now they're millions
because no one wanted to live in Red Hook.
Yeah, that's right. It was bad. Yeah, matter of fact, I recently interviewed a pro bodybuilder, and he grew up in Red Hook, in the Red Hook projects, and we talked about how bad it was in the 80s and 90s. It was bad, man.
Yeah, I've been in some bad projects, and the two were, Baisley, 40s, and I'm talking about 40s in Reference and 40s in Far Rockaway, 40s in South Road, and the two worst that I could tell you is Soundview in the Bronx. I will never go near. That place is worse than Juarez in Mexico.
Yeah,
and Red Hook projects.
Yeah. It was pretty bad in the 80s and 90s, man. It was fucking bad. So you were originally from East New York, right?
Yeah. So my mother comes from the Lower East Side, and her family works for the Fortunato brothers, the bakery. So they lived in Brooklyn. She was the oldest. She moved to the Pink Houses when she was 17. She got a job as a teacher's aide working at 214 on Pickens Avenue, and they lived in the Pink Houses. And then my second brother was born. They moved to Drew Street, so that they were still in East New York, and they were actually still on the East New York side. My father immigrated in 63, almost the end of 64. He actually came on a boat. And
really?
Yeah, actually got the pictures. I used to post them. And he went to Bushwick, with all the other Sicilians. He was down there with, not realizing at the time, because my father knows nothing about Cosa Nostra, but he was there with Galante's whole crew that he brought in from Sicily back then. Wow. Because it was all the soccer clubs, and my father was, big into the soccer clubs. He was big into the pizza scene. One of the pizzeries in my neighborhood, I just went back the other day and actually seen the sun. And in 1964, I seen the place. It said established in 1964. When my father first got here, that was one of his first friends. He built the first pizza counter in this pizzeria that has, to me, is the greatest pizza. Yeah, right. I've never been to Italy, but to me, it's the greatest pizza I've eaten in the country so far. Yeah, pizza. So, so he was from there. My mother was from the Pink Houses. Their whole family was from Brooklyn. And my brother, my oldest brother, he's almost 60. He never left Brooklyn. He went from East New York, Drew Street to Canarsie, and then, eventually out, built a house out in Long Island and, retired. But, and he worked in housing, urban renewal. He worked. And then my father's office was on Mother Gaston. He was an iron worker. So he was in the middle of Brownsville. You know what I mean? So we couldn't get away from it. So then they moved one block over. And now we're in Ozone Park, right? So it's hard, like, people like, where's your accent? It sounds Italian, it sounds street, it sounds hood. And, you tell people you're from Queens, but they're like, Queens? That's not Queens. And it's true. Listen, I can get to Manhattan way faster than I can get to Flushing. Queens Village, to me, is Long Island. Great Neck is Long Island. Douglaston, which is probably the most beautiful part of any neighborhood. Any neighborhood you can pick out, Douglaston is absolutely beautiful. Besides Hewlett and Hewlett Harbor and Mount, all those places in White. So those places to me are forever. East New York, I crossed the street, one side of the block, because that was funny. One side of my block, everybody went to school in Brooklyn. The other side of the block, everybody went to school in Queens. So then I played ball with all the guys from St. Sylvester's in East New York, Grant, McKinley. We traveled around all Brooklyn. And then all my other friends played in Ozone Howard with all the Howard Beach kids. And then that's when all the beefs have started. And I didn't get along with all the kids from Howard Beach or even the kids from that side of Ozone Park. So it's very, but I went to school in Brooklyn. I graduated Franklin K. Lane in East New York. I played ball for East New York. All my boys were in East New York. Started selling drugs in East New York. And then all the crime family that came down 101st Avenue was from Eastern Parkway, which was, my mentor, a legend, a man that I can never speak badly about, that I just can't stop speaking about the man, because I have so much respect for him. And I think he's a man's man. Ronnie went on Trucchio, and he came with the Carrazzo clan down Atlantic Avenue. And then you had John's crew, which was on Fulton and Rockaway, which was just right up the way. And so you had Fat Andy, who used to be in the middle of that.
Right? You're saying Johnny A-Light?
No. John Gotti Sr.
Oh, okay.
So John Gotti Sr., they were a gang first. It was called the Fulton and Rockaway Boys. Okay. So that was Fulton Avenue and Rockaway Avenue, where Fulton, and then you would go straight and you hit Atlantic Avenue and Eastern Parkway. And then that was where JoJo, Nikki, all of them, Ronnie won Sally Gambino, Joey T got, Albanon, Joey T, one of my favorite people, my good friend, one of my very good friends growing up, Alphonse's godfather and Ronnie's best man. But all those guys, all those East New York guys, and guys that I love, those were all the Ozone Park guys, and they came from that part of East New York. That when you go and you get on Atlantic Avenue and you make the right down Eastern Park, and you go towards Crown Heights, right there, like that was their whole area. And then they would fight with the Fulton and Rockaway boys. And, they had their jackets because they were gangs then. Yeah, John and Angelo and the Indian and Jeannie and Richie, they were all tough guys. His brothers, Richie, those guys were all legitimate tough guys. But they were with Charlie Wagons.
Okay.
And Charlie Wagons actually saved Fat Andy's life. Like Fat Andy and Tony Lee, they were running around robbing crap games, all wise guy games, and they're like, "What are you going to do with this guy?"
Ruggiano says that tells the story.
Yeah. He's got if I could, I wish I knew Anthony. Like I still don't really know him. I know his son, and I know of him. Of course, the legendary name. But like when he was younger, and he could have really told me the stories because he was around.
Yeah.
And for the things that he was doing, and he was messed up, and in and out of rehab, in and out of jail. And John Sr. still loved him, kept him around.
Yeah.
Bought him a car. Like John didn't do that for anybody. If John thought you were a garbage pail, you were a garbage pail. And everybody did. Everybody, like all the older guys in my neighborhood, absolutely. I remember they were putting a beef up in the funeral home. And one of Ronnie's parents had passed away at the same time as Fat Andy. And they thought there was a discrepancy for the bill. And I remember the respect level that these guys from East New York had. And Ronnie had it more than anybody. Mm-hmm. And I remember him walking in the room because I never left, he picked me. I was, he mentored me. And, it was just, I was proud to be on his side 24/7. And he walked in, I'll pay for everything. This is an embarrassment. That last name, Ruggiano, was just a legendary name. And so when Charlie Wagons winds up bringing Fat Andy into the life, I remember them saying that about Ronnie. Like, I always thought Ronnie was straightened out. He didn't get straightened out until 89. I was watching Ronnie kick guys off the avenue. I tell people, John is John. The whole world knows John Sr.
Right.
But in my neighborhood, Ronnie I was the most feared guy in the Gambino family. That was it. And had the most guys around him. He was the guy. That was the guy. And I always said if I was ever going to get involved in Cosa Nostra, which I should have never did, I was making so much money with drugs and everything else. They didn't even know who I was, law enforcement. I would be with him. And if I'm with him, then I'm going in, and he was a legend. Like I said, this guy had more people around him. The whole neighborhood knew him. People knew him from everywhere. Mm-hmm. And he was just a regular guy. He wasn't even straightened out. And he was one of those guys. I remember them sitting on the corner talking. He gets straightened out in 89. And I'm like, straightened out? I thought this guy was a boss already. He used to drive, like, it was like a movie. He would go to Drew Street because that's where Ozone Park would end and East New York would begin, and make a U-turn. So everybody on this side of the street be running in the houses in their car because nobody was allowed to be on the corners. Nobody was allowed to be on the streets because all the store owners that weren't Italian paid protection. So all their stores had to be good, couldn't cause any trouble. And then when he made the U-turn, everybody on that side of the street be running around. It's like that movie Wise Guys with Joe Piscopo and Danny DeVito when he goes to start the car. That's how it was when Ronnie would walk out of Aldo's to get in his car and do a neighborhood run. Yeah, it would look like that. The whole everybody running all over the place. And the guy, the man was a legend. And
it's
so
for people. Good.
I'm sitting on the corner and I find out that Ronnie gets straightened out, and I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, he's one of those guys. You clip him or you straighten him out. And then that's when I started to hear that saying. It was like there were certain guys that were in the life, and it's like, listen, you're either going to straighten the guy out or you're going to clip the guy. Because he's either a maniac or he's a big earner, or so there was like always rules to that. He was like one of the first guys. It was like, you don't straighten this guy out, you got to clip him. And this guy had one arm and carried two guns. So the guy you were clipping too easily,
Yeah. It's if you're not from the boroughs or from some kind of inner city where you're Italian, you would automatically think all the tough guys are made or captains. And there are a lot of guys that made their reputation without being, you know, a capo or a soldier, and they made a serious reputation for themselves. I mean, Johnny A. was one of them, right? Because he couldn't, because he wasn't Italian. But
he just made himself a boss in himself.
Right. Yeah.
Put 5-6 guys around him, had 30 guys around him selling drugs. So it's just, he's a horse of a different color when you know bring him into the conversation.
But when my parents were in Red Hook, I'm pretty sure he's passed now. It was a man named Frankie Barranco. Everybody called him Frankie Martin. And you know who
everybody knew Frankie Martin was.
Yeah. But he was
a legitimate tough guy.
Right, exactly. And from what I understand, he was never, you know, straightened out, but he was a legitimate tough guy, and he had a serious reputation. And my father was friends with his brother, and they were from Red Hook, and they had gotten into a fight. They were in the city, they were in Manhattan. And this is when my father, like, I would say he was probably late teens, early 20s. And they were in Manhattan, and he was with Frankie Martin's brother. For the life of me, I don't know his brother's name. And they got into a fist fight at this bar, and one of the guys picked up a chair and went to hit Frankie Martin's brother. And the bartender jumped over the bar, grabbed the guy, pulled the chair away from him. He said, "Are you crazy? That's Frankie Martin's brother." And they were in Manhattan, you know, and come from Brooklyn. And there are legitimate tough guys that never had to be made, that never had to be.
Jimmy Burke, Joe Watts,
right.
Frankie Martin. I could go on and on. There's guys, but Frankie Martin was like, I mean, Joe Watts, they said, has a small cemetery. That's how many guys he probably killed. But there was like legitimate guys that will beat you up, shoot you, stab you. And that was like, like Frankie Martin. There was guys like that. You know what I mean? There was only a few that were like that will drag you around in the street and then shoot you. You know, after they beat you up for 2 days. You know what I mean? So, he was one of them. You know,
so, let's get back.
You know what's funny? I see what you just did, and a lot of people do it, and I have relatives that do it. And I'm like, guys grew up in Far Rockaway, guys grew up in East New York, and I'm like, when you mention Manhattan, you mention the city. Why do we do that?
I don't know.
I make fun of people.
I do it all the time.
We're going to the city. I'm like, where? The city.
Yeah.
The city's 5 boroughs. No, you know the city. The city, man.
It's the truth.
Like, that's not the city.
Yeah,
the city's 5 boroughs.
It's 100% right.
But I'm like, but we all do it, and I see you do, and I'm like, all right, you know, it's just not my dumb Italian family. Like, it's other Italians that do it as well.
Like, everybody, the city is
Manhattan. We're gonna go to the city in December. We live in the city.
Yeah. No, it's the truth. It really is.
You know, like how we do that. It's funny you bring up Frankie Martin. That's crazy because there was a lot of legitimate tough guys that were around like that, right? Yeah. John had the Indian, right? Bobby, right?
I don't remember.
Not Bobby. What was the Indian's name that John Sr. hung out with? The guy was knocked out a horse, had a reputation for knocking out a horse.
I don't know.
Bowad, whatever they called them.
I didn't know.
Supposedly killed them, clipped them.
I didn't know too many guys from Queens, to be honest with you.
Yeah, he was legitimate. Yeah, he was like with John every day, and he was American Indian.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta look it up.
He was part of that Fulton Rockaway, you know, crew.
Okay. Yeah. So tell me how you wound up becoming mentored by Ronnie One.
Well, it was inevitable. I grew up on 76. Well, now I live on 76th Street and 101st Avenue on top of Castelli's Bakery. Mm-hmm. It changed names, becomes Rosemary's Bakery. Castelli Bakery, actually, Castelli was a knockaround guy. And his brother and my father were very good friends. And his son was Angelo Castelli. Castelli. Now, if you ever want to see a threesome where you would just would want to move out of the country, was Angelo Castelli, Frankie Burke, and Johnny A. These were the 3 sickest guys that you could ever have around. They were nuts. And Angelo got killed at 25 years old. You know, an accident had to kill him. Yeah, Frankie Burke winds up getting killed. That had something to do with, you know, my father's cousin or son. They wind up clipping him and Fathers and Sons. That's the second dead body I see by the time that's 87. That's by 87, I'm 10. That's the second dead body I see in my life. Him getting, you know, he got clipped. I mean, I don't know. Like, I listen to these wise guys that tell stories, and there's like a few. You know what I mean? Sammy, I've heard it in the beginning. I don't listen to him too much anymore. It, you know, too dramatic, too movie-like for me. But his story, he's Sammy Gambino. Yeah. Him, Michael Francis, those guys are just on another level of telling stories because they are who they are. But like, he walked out the door, and you know, Carmine Persico was there, or you walked out the door and Joe Messina was right over here. Mm-hmm. And it was the same thing for me. Like I came out my house and there's Jojo Carrazzo, and there's Ronnie One Arm, and then there's Vinny Asara, who was, his father was a mad hatter for the Banana family, going back to the mozzarella. I always say the mozzarella wars, going back before the families were even, he was a mad hatter, and those were all the Sicilians. And then, and then I seen the Sicilian side, and then on my mother's side, who was from Manhattan, I would go on Sundays to Hester Street to her uncle's club, and it was about 5-minute walk to to the Raven, which at the time I started going when it was still on Neil's. I think John takes it over, right at 85, he takes the Neil's Club over. Mm-hmm. So I was probably going 82, 83 before John took it over. But my mother's uncle had a club there, and I meet Sonny for the first time at my grandmother's wake.
Sonny,
82, 5 years old. He's the first wise guy's hand I ever shook.
Sonny Frances?
Sonny Francis.
Okay.
The guy was a presence in himself. Mm-hmm. He looked like a boxer. He built like a big German. The guy was just a monster. Mm-hmm. Probably had a $5,000 suit on. He was on the lam. I remember hearing this 5 years old. This is what's being talked about after the wake. Like I'm 5. Yeah, Sonny was on the lam. Yeah, it was a beef in the violation or something for parole. And the guy was traveling around with 20 guys, like everywhere he went. And he was like a legend. And my mother knew him since she was a little girl, and my mother would have been 80, so she comes from the old school. And she loved her uncle, who was in life, and her father was, but we didn't, I didn't get along. I didn't know my grandfather that well. We didn't get along. He was involved with, wise guys. And then my father, coming from Sicily, he had his family here. Like I said, they own fathers and sons, where his cousin gets clipped for having something to do with the Frankie Burke situation. And his brother gets in trouble, a beef with a cop or something. He goes back to the mountains in Sicily and goes on the way. So, and then it's like, now I'm on 101st Avenue. I'm growing up, I'm 5 years old. You're learning about football, take kid, run this over there, run that over here. But the thing is, it's not like they show you in the movies, right? They don't go around picking you and saying, we're going to breed this kid to be a second story guy. We're going to breed this kid to teach him how to cut heroin up. We're going to breed this kid to how to steal cars. You know what I mean? You earned your stripes, because that's, back then, there wasn't 50 million kids in the house on the iPad. The streets were loaded with kids.
That's right.
The wise guys didn't want you on the corners. I can't tell you how many beatings we got. They love to grab by your balls and fucking kicking your nuts and throw you off the corner. Like, they didn't want you hanging out in the streets, because they didn't want, the old people used to love going in the clubs and complaining. The old ladies, they're making noise. They got the radios on all night. So they were always kicking us off the corners in front of the pizzerias. You get caught smoking a joint in the park, they put you in the hospital. Like, I love when people say that, these dope and heroin. I remember guys getting caught smoking a joint, and they got knuckled. They got slapjacked. I mean, they were smoking a joint.
Not in Brooklyn.
And it's funny. It's like, maybe the guy passed wind, but an old lady walked by and said she smelled the funny cigarette. There'd be 30 guys piling out of the club to go to work on everybody on that corner, because they smoked a joint with 3 old ladies walking home from the grocery store, coming home from the butcher. So it was like a farm system. And as you went down 101st Avenue, there was a social club on every other block. The Genovese, the Gambinos, it was a majority Gambino, Padano neighborhood. There was, but you had the Lucchese's, you had Joey Scopo Sr., who was a gentleman. I mean, I've seen pictures inside the Bergen of like them all growing up and hanging out together. And it's actually nice to see. Like, there's like 5 or 6 guys in the picture, and they're from like 3 different crime families, because they all grew up together in a certain part of East New York. So yeah, Joey Scopo had a club, and then he had a captain in that neighborhood. He had a club, and then there was a few other Colombo guys that were from the Ozone Park, the Long Island area, that weren't from the Brooklyn area that had clubs, and then you had Ciro, the old man that owned Don Pep's. He was probably the only, Genovese club. He had a very beautiful club, artwork up on the wall, beautiful, very expensive artwork. He used to take care of the church. He used to feed all the nuns. So like this is what went on in my neighborhood. Like I remember, like my family was dirt poor, and I wanted to play baseball. I was a very good baseball player when I was younger, and I'm playing with the East New York kids, so we look like the bad news bears. These guys got brand new cleats, nice scoreboards. We're playing in Twin Oval where they found the bodies, where they used to bury the guys in the old dooms over there in the landfills. That's where we used to play. Nice. So yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we couldn't play for a whole summer once. We had to go to Powell's Oval because they were digging bodies up at the one field that we played on. And I went home, and I think the uniforms were $45, and they were T-shirts. And then it was $45 because I wound up making a travel. So I traveled around Brooklyn because I played for a Brooklyn team, and I would travel around Brooklyn playing all the other Brooklyn teams, not just, pickup games. So it was like $90 or something. And I go home, I'm like, I need $90. And my father was like, oh, well, you'll get to play when you get a job.
Right.
So what do you do? I don't want to go stand on the corner. I don't want to panhandle tickets, even though it's not beneath me. You know what I mean? I ain't got enough money to buy quarter water, so it's not beneath me to do it. But you go down the block, and what happens? What do you got? I want to go play ball. What do you mean you want to play ball? I go to play ball in East New York. I got to sell these raffles. Well, what are the raffles? I got to get 45 for this, 45. What are the raffles? Here's $100. Go ahead.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And with there's nothing behind it. And a lot of the times, the guy that gave it to you didn't even remember who you were.
Right.
There's 1,000 kids on the corner. There's 1,000 kids on the block. You know what I mean? Until you really start making a name for yourself, and you're cracking heads, and you're keeping. Because now you got to remember the part of Queens that we're from. We were getting pushed out by the blacks. So we're coming out of East New York, where it was all Italian, Irish, and Jewish, into Ozone Park, and they're coming along with us. And they're following us.
That's right.
And, there wasn't. Listen, and you could say that is. There wasn't 4 Italian guys in East New York robbing cars. There's 4 black guys in Ozone Park robbing cars.
Right.
So, and then that becomes, turns into race wars. Because now my brothers go to Franklin K. Lane. My cousins go to Franklin K. Lane. And that's on the East New York section. So you got all the guys from Brooklyn. And then you got all the Italian and Irish kids that were poor that lived on that side of Ozone Park and Woodhaven. I think A-Light went there. A-Light and my brother were the same age. They went there. And when they went there, it was like real race wars. And I don't say it as, being racist. All the kids on my teams, all the guys I grew up with, they were Jewish, black, Spanish, Italian, didn't matter. It was
that's how it was. It was the same way in Brooklyn.
Yeah, it was like, but we lived on the borderline. So this is what we had to deal with. And now you gotta remember, I grew up in the crack pandemic. Right. So now you got coming down 101st Avenue. 101st Avenue ends at my block and becomes Liberty Avenue. And that's when you're allowed to start selling crack. They one block over, because now you're at Ronnie's club was on one corner, Vinny Sarah's was on the other. You weren't selling crack in between those clubs. But a block up, you're in East New York now.
Right.
So then what are you doing? Some guy's walking down the block with a VCR. Guy walks out of the club, sees a guy walking by with a VCR. What is he going to do? Get baseball batted. Where does this guy get the VCR from?
Right.
You know what I mean? What is this guy doing with a TV? Crack his fucking head. What is he doing? He robbed somebody we know. Right. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't matter. And then that's how it really became. And then it got bad for a while, and then as we got older and I started to play ball, and I got along with everybody. I was friends with guys in, Ozone Park, guys from East New York. And then I started hanging out after, then my mother passes away. My father gets sick. I become an orphan, and I'm hanging out now at a park called 88 Park. Now, 88
how old are you at this point?
I'm 13 at the time. That's when I get my nickname. I get my nickname at 88 Park. Nobody knows who I am from 88 Park. So 88 Park was Fat Andy Ruggiano. That was his park. Okay. His son Albert was the guy. He was a boxer. He could have played professional baseball. He was Johnny A-Light's baseball coach, actually. And that's where you would see the guys. See A-Light pull up in a vet. Caesar Camino pull up in a Randall Lincoln. This guy from that guy. And not realizing that, they're all there because they come from the Fat Andy side. So, he's away, or he's doing time, or whatever he is. But every Sunday or whatever, when these guys have a pickup softball game, it was the who's of Cosa Nostra. And these guys wind up, becoming legends in the life. So now I start hanging out there. By 14, they wind up opening a social club. Fat Andy's away now at the time. I think Albert gives up on, he had a few things going on in the park. Anthony had, I think, the Joker Polkas going at the time. And we wind up hooking up with, we used to call him Michelangelo. He's one of Nicky Carrazzo's guys. And they taught me how to take book. I was 14.
Wow.
You know, they asked me, I'm walking around with no shirt on, thinking I'm a pretty boy, talking to every girl. I'm new in the neighborhood, selling drugs. I think I got it like that. I don't think that I'm not on 101st Avenue, so I don't know I can get my head cracked open.
Right.
I don't know if Fat Andy lives across the street. This guy's a mad hatter. Like he made this saying, suicide mission, a thing. That's when you clip somebody during the day. I had no idea the guy was living across the street, and I'm running around like I'm Don Juan drug dealer. You know what I mean?
So you're 14, and your parents are passed. Who do you live with at this point?
So my mother passes first. My father gets sick with COPD and emphysema. He's bedridden. So we wind up having to move, and we go into a studio apartment. I get a job. I'm working at the Jacob Javits Center, and I'm selling drugs. I'm getting up at 3 a.m. trying to go to school, and I'm raising my little sister. Back then, I mean, people didn't call. Who's going to call? You know, it's more of a people don't even get a phone to call you, ACS or whatever it's called.
Right.
No one even paid attention. Nobody cared. Nobody gave a fuck.
Right.
Nobody cares. Like Sonny says, nobody cares.
Right.
Nobody cares. If I ain't ringing an adult bell for toilet paper, they don't give a fuck.
Yeah. Right.
As long as he's leaving us alone, let them do what they want. So it was just me and my younger sister, and I had to do what I had to do.
Sure.
And I tried to live a little bit too as a kid, you know. Right. And I wanted to go to school. I wanted to learn. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm in the streets and walk around with no shirt on, 60 pounds soaking wet, you know, and calls me into the office. Think I like my attitude, good looking kid, all the girls like me. I got a big mouth, you know, I'm sharp with my mouth. And they said, you know, I take bets. I'm like, yeah, okay. Fuck out of here. Leave me alone. I don't give a fucking hoot now. Leave the fuck away from. And there was some heavy hitters in there. There was some tough guys in there, real tough, like legitimate tough guys, like where I take 5 of them against 50 anybody, like legitimate tough guys.
So now, who is it that calls you into the club, into the office?
One of Nicky Carrazzo's guys.
Okay.
Very good friend of mine.
Okay.
So, and one of the guys that's also in there is what winds up being in there is the detective that A-Light clips the guy in the car. That's how I know that story.
Okay.
When John's driving the Interborough and he's in the back seat, the guy's driving, and he's like a decorated detective, and John shoots the guy in the head. Oof. The guy's brains explodes all over the car.
Yeah, I didn't know that story.
Oh, you know, that's like the greatest. That's like the best one. That's like the first one that I heard firsthand.
Okay.
That was the boxer, the UFC fighter, his father. They had a UFC fighter.
Oh, you're talking about what's his name?
Baroni.
Phil Baroni.
Right.
Yes.
So his father was a direct. I love Big Philly. Big Philly was partners with A-Light's father, Matty, in the bookmaking business.
Okay.
And the guy was a kid to them that was bringing me into the life, mentoring me into sports. He mentored them. They were older than him, so it went like that. And he was always the one telling me, "Let's do fireworks. Stick with the bookmaking." And we all thought that he'd be straightened out first. Everybody loved him. All the wise guys loved him. He never wanted it. He worked a legitimate job always. You know, he earned big money with bookmaking. Didn't get involved with the drugs or the stuff that could put you away for a lot of years. We had the only social club around the corner from Fat Andy's house. You know, but it was protected by Nicky, of course. Ralphie Fly ran it at the time. I don't know if you know Ralphie Fly is from Brooklyn. God rest his soul. But not Ralphie Fly. Another great guy coming out of Canarsie. Canarsie had some great guys. They really did. And Ralphie was one of them. He did some time. I think he came home. He got sick with diverticulitis, and I'm not too sure. But he was a dynamite guy. So he would come, and football tickets or pick up the work. And so, our friend Louis takes a liking to me, a lot older than me, brings me into the office, knows I'm a knockaround guy. And those guys in those days, they love it. They love seeing guys picking up girls and starting trouble. And I'm fighting in the park. I'm getting my teeth kicked in by the older guys. They love that. So they called me to the office one day, and these guys were monsters. I'm talking about 6'5" Irish guys, and ripped up. And they were like, what would you do if we raped you right now, if we took you into jail? And they were just getting real rowdy on me, And I was listening, I don't give a fucking hoot nanny what any of you do. So they didn't know who I was. So like the next day, I'm on the bench hanging out with a bunch of girls. I got my shirt off, and they didn't know what my name was. And they were like, Hootie. Hootie, Cutie Hootie, come here, Cutie Hootie. And that's where the name came. And Cutie Hootie stuck with me forever. I mean, everybody would just call me Cutie Hootie.
That's great.
I mean, like, we're going to, like, let's call Cutie Hootie. We're going to Lucas. You know what I mean? Like, everything was Cutie Hootie, you know? And these guys were my mentors. You know, they took me to restaurants and showed me how to eat, taught me how to fight, taught me how to stay and fight, taught me that winning doesn't mean shit. Staying. When there's 5-on-1, getting your head kicked in with your friend. Yeah. Not that, oh shit, he got his head kicked in, but I didn't. No, that ain't working. It's right. Both he's getting your head kicked in, or you ain't never coming around. Like, you know, like those type of, you know, morals. And, you know, it was a really good time in my life. And I needed that. Just, you know, I got no parents. I got no, you know, nobody to look up to at the time. I'm not even looking or thinking about Cosa Nostra yet. I'm selling drugs. I'm still cooking crack. I'm still selling drugs. Get involved heavy in the marijuana business. I'm moving fireworks. They don't know that because they're totally against drugs at 88 Park, totally against it. You know, the bookmaking's doing great, and football tickets were phenomenal back then. And then, you know, people used to work just them 3 weeks in July for fireworks, and they were rich the rest of the year. Like, so there was so many ways back then that you didn't have to get involved, you know. And and in my neighborhood, it was a big deal. If you got caught, you know, selling drugs, you're going to cut your hands off. You know what I mean? It was a serious thing. So these guys wind up mentoring me in the bookmaking business at the age of 14. I learned it inside out. Before you know it, they had 4 guys working the phones. I think within 3 months, I was the only guy working, learning about 2-ply, 3-ply, snapping bets, shuffling bets, holding bets. Guys calling from jail, putting bets in, putting his bets in the shredder because he had no shot, ripping guys' bets up as soon as I was writing them. I mean, by 16, there wasn't anything I didn't know, from parlays to if bets to box reverses. And then there was kids that were a little bit older than me that were also there, that were even, these kids could have went to MIT. Right. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't even belong. They didn't even belong. I mean, I'm sitting here, I'm trying to do a 200-time reverse box, 3-team reverse box in my head, and they're like, 12,500. I'm like, holy shit. I'm getting to it, and they're there. You know, they're there. Yeah. And then I live around the corner from Aqueduct Racetrack, so we're at the track every day. We're learning the yards. We're learning who the jockeys are. We're learning who the owners are. We're learning who the trainers are. You know what I mean? We're learning who the guy who's walking the horse in the morning, who's going to juice the horse for us, who's going to, you know what I mean? So it's all there, you know? And a lot of times it's asking for forgiveness is when you get pulled in. Because a lot of these guys, you're not going to ask for permission. You're either going to go and you're going to, you know, get a horse sick that belongs to a guy that's around a wise guy. You know what I mean? And what'd you do? You made 50,000 on us. All right, give us 49,000, keep 1,000. That's how those guys worked, you know. And you take off, but a week from now, they're gonna remember you, you know. And a lot of that happened with me, with the tough guys from 88 Park. Like, these guys were older than me. I mean, they're in their late 50s. You know, they're all like John's age and my brother's age. So they would remember. I didn't have no curfew. I'm 14 years old. I'm in a park fighting with them at 3 a.m. against the Howard Beach kids. About the kids from Liberty Avenue. And it's like, what is this kid doing? And I had a couple of guys that really looked out for me, that pulled me out of piles. And, you know, I got cut one night in this place, make me fit. They dragged me out of there. And they're like, what are you doing? Like, don't you got school in the morning? Like, these guys were just, and, you know, I learned a lot from them. But by doing that and being there, I built a very good reputation in that neighborhood. And I was known as a street tough, being with these guys. And, you know, I hear people talk shit today. A lot of these guys were like, work for the railroad or work for Verizon, and they'll talk shit to you know. But when I was 10 and they were 24, they were tough guys. You know, you could say that, you know what I mean? But when I was 24 and you were 40, you weren't saying that, because we, you know, now we're at even. We could, you know, we could scrap now. You know what I mean? Right. And that's how it was. And I wind up really, I mean, that was like my golden years. And you're meeting the guys that are doing stick ups and guys, you know, who's clipping guys. And as you're getting older, the guys that you grow up with, you know, that guy became a killer. And that guy became a killer. And that guy became, you know, that guy sleeping in dumpsters for 3 days because he's knocking over Home Depot. It's like, that guy became an ultimate thief. Or, you know what I mean? This guy went to Costa Rica and opened up the biggest sports book you can imagine. Like, we knew guys that just took off, that these sports books that are going on today, we know the guys that it made it possible for that to happen. You know, we know guys that used to make lines. You know, I watched the guy move a line in Vegas. I wasn't even 21 yet. I watched them move a line in Vegas. It was just one of the sickest things I've ever seen. Watching guys move lines and learning about that. And that was like probably that was like one of my favorite subjects was math and numbers, and it came naturally to me. And I should have stuck with it. When they actually picked me up, I was home on parole for a pharmaceutical case. And I just finished parole in 2010. And I was out of the drug game because they almost put my lights out for pharmaceuticals in the state. It wasn't even a federal case. So that I says, that's it. And like, I had a bookmaker business up and running within 2 weeks in Costa Rica. Up and running in Costa Rica. I was finding ways to keep payphones from being taken because they were taking payphones out. I'd roll around I'd go get $100 in quarters, go to the bank, get 100 check cashing place, roll quarters, and go over to every broken phone and load them up with quarters. And then I'd call like I lived next door. And like, listen, my neighbor keeps using my phone. Her mother's sick. You got to get the phone working on the corner. You do something like that medical-wise, they don't take that phone away. They fix it. Because now the guy goes and opens the phone, there's 20,000 quarters in there. So now he's got something to take back to his supervisors. I say, listen, this phone's making money. And, there's a lady that lives on the corner who ain't got a phone. She's got a sick mother. Now that phone stays. And I'm on Linden Boulevard and Rockaway. Like I'm all the way, like I'm picking phones from everywhere. And when the tapes came out, I wasn't on one of them. Not one tape. Pay phones. Now the guys in my crew, they didn't use smartphones. They didn't use cell phones. They used chips. And I stood with that. And when they came and got me in 2011, I'm like, what do you guys want? I haven't been near drugs in over 10 years. And like went right back to the basics when I was 14, what I learned of bookmaking and numbers and Shylocking and putting football tickets out, finding a printer to print them out. And it was amazing that now I'm an adult at the age that these guys were. And I couldn't like physically think like, how am I going to make this money? The houses, the cars, the roads, the vacations. We're doing this for us. Oh, it was there. And it was there for the taking. And I went right back to the basics. I never touched the drugs again. And it was those mentors in 88 Park. And those guys are all still around. Those guys are all on the street. They all got great pensions. They're actually even still working, some of them. They all had great city jobs, tough guys. The guys from Cosa Nostra respect them. A lot of them are related to guys in Cosa Nostra. And they told me, stay this route. Don't go that route, And I wind up running into squashing a beef, actually, with the kids from Howard Beach. And it was John's youngest son, Peter Gotti, Little Peter, we used to call him.
Really?
And that's where it all started with me and Cosa Nostra. Even though this whole time I'm selling fireworks, doing knockoffs, stuff that fell off the back of trucks. I'm delivering turkeys with a wise guy in a 1970 Lincoln. I'm driving a 1970 Lincoln at 15 years old. I can't even deal with this, but not parking them and with a trunk loaded with turkeys, giving them out for Christmas gifts.
Yeah. So, you went through the drug running, the sports bet making, Shylocking, all before you were basically 16 years old.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, you dealt with other people besides the Italians, right? You dealt with the Dominicans. Who else?
Well, that's how it started. It wasn't even, I didn't deal with the Italians until I walked into 88 Park after, my mother died, my father got sick. We moved out of City Line into an area called Woodhaven, and it was called Woodhaven Warriors. But Ozone, it was like Atlantic Avenue separated. You cross Atlantic Avenue on Ozone Park side, and the other side you on Woodhaven side. And I met these guys. So before all of that, I had corners. I met a Dominican guy, and this is before I wanted to go and get a cartel connection. I wanted to be Pablo's wife. I wanted to be Pablo's Italian guy in America. That was just the crazy thoughts in my head, because I'm like, I could do it all. Like, I'm Sicilian. Who's going to tell me anything?
Right.
It's my birthright. Like, these guys are going to accept me with open arms. And then what are these guys going to tell me? The Dominicans, the Blacks, and the Puerto Ricans. They don't want no problem with the Sicilians. You know what I mean? And the Peak connection was alive and running through Ridgewood and all these restaurants. And, we knew about it. We didn't know exactly how, but we knew the Sicilians were strong, in the babanya business. So, it was like, I just thought I was feeling like He-Man at 15, you know?
Right.
And then there was a lot of guys. There was, these Spanish kids that were just killing City Line. They were blowing buildings up, crack corners. And so I found I would go up a little bit further and a block into Queens, because these guys wouldn't come into Queens. And I would try to get all their customers before they get into Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. So they had this Dominican guy he lived on the Ozone Park side, but in the City Line section. So it wasn't where people would notice him. If he was living in Centerville or Wakefield back then, it would have been a little noticeable. This dark-skinned guy driving a Mercedes, and he would take all the kids to Floyd Bennett Field. He had like race cars, and he had helicopters and airplanes, like real money, like sick toys this guy had. And he would take all the kids from the neighborhood there. And I really didn't have any supervision, but I wasn't even checking in with my mother to ask her back then. I mean, we were kids. But me, I want to know, how's he got the rope chain?
Yeah.
Where's the Bavana? Like where's the Perico? Like, I want to know like, how's he doing this? This guy can't put a nail in the wall. Don't tell me how this guy's making money. You know what I mean? And just beautiful women everywhere. And then there was always it was like the mother or the aunt, the old lady in the corner. And then just women walking around in bikini. Like you see in the movies, mm-hmm. But not like you see, like, guys ain't walking around with machine guns. And they treat you with a certain kind of respect, because that was ours. Like the world was ours. The country was ours. It was American Cosa Nostra. We ran the country. Mm-hmm. It was nobody, even later on when I was telling people, when we were getting 100 pounds of powder a week, or we were getting 10 keys or 20 keys, guns were never where the drugs were. Money was never where the drugs were. If somebody got the drop on us and they got 10 keys, or they got 100 pounds of powder, they got 20 keys, they got it. There's nothing to do about it. They got it. Right. So now it's all about, are they going to clip us? Because we're going to come after you. You know what I mean? So it was never like that. So if I picked up 100 pounds of pot, I worked 2 hours a week. I got the pot and I brought it to the guy. Within 24 hours, I'm going to now go collect for that 100 pounds of pot. I'm going to get a bag of money and I'm going to drop it off. That's the way it worked. We weren't sitting in a factory. We weren't sitting in a warehouse in Dumbo. We weren't shaking it up to see how pure it was. Right. If we got beat, then we're going to go have to settle what we got beat on.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, however these people show you in the movies, it wasn't like that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And then there was a lot of respect in the neighborhood. So there was all guys that were running drugs that were Irish and Italian and German. And you do good business to start with. Yeah, in the beginning, if you're young and you're a punk, they're going to try to rob you. Mm-hmm. But if they see you're a guy that's got stuff coming in, you got it continuously coming in, they're going to want to work with you. Mm-hmm. They're going to want to get prices with you. And that's who I was. I was more of a politician or a negotiator. Again, I got along with anybody. Mm-hmm. When I had a fight, I had a fight. I had to put a piece of work. There's just things I had to do. But most of the time I did it because I did good business. Right. And we made good money. Because you're going to tell me that you're getting 10 keys at this. How about this? Find out what your connector's getting it for, and I'm going to give you to 20% what he's paying. Whatever he's paying, I'm going to give it to 20% less than that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And that's how you make friends in that business. And that's what wound up happening. I stood around this Dominican guy, and it was the crack guy. It was full-fledged. You're talking about 83. Like, this was, you were flowing. And I knew nothing about it yet. I had family members that were addicted to it. I could never own a bike. I never had a bicycle. I had a GT Performer for $10 because the crackheads, I lived on the first block going into Brooklyn.
Yeah.
The guy was trying to sell the bike the whole way. And he got to that block and he's like, you know what? Right up the block, they got 2 for $5. I'm going to get 4 vials for $10. Kid, you got $10? I'm running into the grocery store. I'm going to see the Korean. I'm going upstairs. I'm grabbing quarters out of my socks. And I got a GT Performer for $10. Right, that was the nicest thing I ever owned as a kid.
I had
a GT Performer.
I had the same bike.
I didn't know how to do tricks on it.
No.
I didn't know how to. It had pegs and I didn't have three-piece cranks. What the fuck is a 3-piece crank? My boy had a clutch that he kept upside down with no wheels on. I'm like, what do you? He looked at it all day long.
Yeah.
This got a 3-piece crank. You have no idea what this thing could do. What can I do? Fly? Because you got no wheels.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Then you're teaching me about spokes. And I'm like, spokes? I'm like, we're all spokes on a wheel. Come on. Like, I had no idea. Right. And what the rotor would do. I tried to do something once. It ran me. I thought I was going to have kids. I was sick for a month. I hit, you know when you spin it and you got the rotor?
Yeah.
I hit my nuts. It was over with. I'm like, listen, I got a fly bike. I'm good. I can't tell you how many times they try to rob me for it. I'm going up to Highland Park in Jamaica Avenue.
Okay.
Like, they kill people there just to kill them. You know what I mean? And I'm over here driving this $700 GT Performer. So that's what it was. So as people got older, what do people think? This guy's a pedophile. He's taking kids to Floyd Bennett Field to fly planes. So little by little, all the kids start jumping off. So one day it's just me.
Okay.
Somebody comes by the house one day. He gives them a package. I see it. What's that? No, that's not for you. What's that? And and these guys are for real. Like,
yeah.
Back then, you had to be ready to go to jail or ready to kill people if you were a drug dealer. Bottom line.
Yeah. How old are you at this point?
8, 9.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? Like, this is what you're seeing.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, the guy
so
was.
It almost like you didn't have it. It was almost you didn't have a choice. It was like
everybody always says you have choices, but I've never really seen them.
Yeah, you were born into this since you were,
it's just around it.
Yeah,
it's just around it. If I'm not sitting in the social club watching them play pinochle, talking about that they burned Hoffa at a crematory, like, you know what I mean? Like these are the stories the old timers would talk about. Like, what does it matter if I'm hearing a story from a Dominican or if I'm hearing it from a Sicilian?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. You got me sitting around with your uncle. The guy killed 2 people last night. You know what I mean? And we're drinking espresso today.
Right.
You know what I mean? So come on, let's knock it off with sharing a canola.
All right. So you were deep into the drug business, Shylock and bookmaking. You were basically a street dude. By the time you were 16 years old, you were making all this money, so on and so forth. How deep do you go in Cosa Nostra? And why did you
get any deeper?
Okay, but were you ever straightened out?
No.
Okay.
No. So, Ronnie gets caught up on our case. It's a bookmaking case. He has nothing to do with it. It's a 1-3. I actually go to see him. I get a 1-3. His son gets a 1-3. A few other guys get a 1-3. I get a 6-5. I come home. He was getting surgeries, so I'm with him at the hospital for special surgeries on First Avenue.
Sure.
Everybody else is away, and I'm on. When you put your hand in, it's probation, so there's no paper or anything like that, and he hasn't turned himself in yet. He has to get like hip surgeries, knee surgeries. Thank God, he's getting himself ready. We're going to the dentist, so I was with him every day. He's getting all these things done, and just getting ready to go away on a bookmaking case, cursing everybody because now it's in the papers. $30 million a year. We were kids. We got pinched in 2002. You know what I mean? Like, wow. We were still taking action. Everybody was already overseas. And the crazy part about it is my friend whose business it was, he was probably closer to the guy who created Costa Rica than anybody else. He was just didn't want to give up. Like, he had so many guys back then, it would have cost him $3,000 a week to send his work away. You know how many guys that is to give somebody $3,000 a week to write the work? And people don't even have computers yet. I remember we were going over the payphones down in the 888 numbers still. Remember, it was that 718-555. You would get the scores. Like, we were still using the Square Sports beepers. Pay $500 for life. And the thing never went off. I'm like, I tell people, the FBI sells these stores, right? The thing never had a bill. We paid $500, never got a bill for this thing. So, he was still writing work. And some of it was greed, but some of it was still us going to the office on shifts, us buying 3-ply, 2-ply paper, us punching the bets, us rooting. Like, I'll never forget. We go down to see the Giants play Tampa in 2000, right? The 99. Now it's 2000, sure. The Super Bowl. And I got 18,000. I think it's 18,000. It comes out to between 9 and 18,000 on the Giants to win the Super Bowl. I gambled on any 2 cockroaches falling up the wall. So I'm heavy on the Giants. I'm not even a Giant fan. I'm a Jet fan. I'm heavy on the Giants. And we get the call from the office. This is the difference. I mean, you used to be able to get it. You could call up, or you could go. Back then, you could go on the computer. But none of us ever had computers. But you could call the offices. What do we have you on? And they'll one side you, and you could lay off, or you could gamble yourself. So we had so many people were still back home, meaning back in Queens, writing bets while we're at the Giant Ravens Super Bowl, and we got tickets for the Super Bowl. Ybor City the night before, there was a shootout. It was insane. You know, Warwick Dunn was staying in the room next to us. He had like 6 chicks with him. Like, it was nuts. Super Bowl, that Super Bowl in Tampa was crazy that year. So we find out that everybody bet the Giants. And a friend of ours, of course, who do you bet the Giants? What do you think? Anybody else is going to bet the Giants? And he goes, so listen, this is John had Moet's at the time. Beautiful club. Steaks, you know, the place was beautiful. And he goes, listen, fuck the game. He goes, I'll eat 18, 19,000 in bets for you right now. Let's go to Moet's. We already went to the dog track, highly. We did everything. Goes, I'll eat those bets. Let's go and all root together against the Giants. I mean, we're all New Yorkers. Let's just go to Moet's. Let's take it over. Fuck the game. I mean, we pay like $2,000 a piece for these tickets. Fuck the game. Didn't even try to sell. There was about 30 of us down there. And that's not even counting everybody else from all over our neighborhoods and Howard Beach and all. By the time this was over, we had about 300 people in Moet's. And they were all they all found out that we just weren't going to the game. Like, you sick fucks.
No, this was in Tampa.
Yeah, this was in Tampa. We had every strip club we had. This was when bottle service was $5,000. When your bill was $5,000 at the end of the night, and everybody was looking around going, "What'd you drink?" I didn't. How much did you have to drink? You know what I mean? Like, that's like when bottle service came, and they're like, "Calm down, guys. You know, you got a bill for $5,000." Everybody was looking around like, "How'd that happen?"
Right,
you know,
right.
I mean, we were in any place you name it. We were just insane, and we wind up going, and it wound up being like $1 million on the Baltimore rate on the Giants. He wound up winning big. I didn't have no action, but I got to root for him. I would have lost anyway, and everybody bet the Giants that year. And I didn't know how much action the office took in, but I found out afterwards. It was like, because then we went to Vegas. We partied for like 2 months straight after the Giants lost. And I mean, this is 2000. Like, this is what we were doing. Okay? We were the princes of the city. We were walking in places with platinum Rolexes, masterpieces. Everybody drove. We weren't allowed to drive Benzes yet because there was a whole thing with Ronnie was, you drive a Benz, we're all going to get pinched, you know? And it was a whole big thing with Al. Al never sold drugs. Like, Al was a bookmaker. He made a ton of money off of bookmaking, and he wasn't a gambler.
Who's Al?
The biggest thing about bookmaking is if you don't gamble, you're going to get rich.
Right. Who's Al?
Alphonse Trucchio. Okay. He was the captain in my crew.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's Ronnie when I'm son.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I meet him through Little Peter. I'm hanging out with Little Peter every day.
Okay.
But now I'm in my glory, right? I'm with John Sr.'s son.
Right.
This is me. Right. Junior's the boss at the time. He's across the street. We're around the corner at Peter's club every day. You know, like, I'm in my glory. We're having walk talks up and down the trestle. Like John used to have, you know, like, I'm in my glory. And then I meet Al one night, and he invites me over to a card game. And I know he's Ronnie's son, and they're doing it. Like, they're doing it. Like, they're living, you know what I mean? And it's like, they got, you know, their stash house was in Howard Beach. My stash house was in Brownsville off of the Lutz Avenue. You know what I mean? These guys had stash houses in Howard Beach. Like, it was just insane. So it was like, and I started hanging with them one night, you know, and it was just like, there's no, where did he come from? Who brought this guy around? He lived on the top of the bakery his whole life. Like, you know, I was walking in places, and he'd go to introduce me to a wise guy. And what do you introduce me? I know Hootie since he's 5. I know Hootie when he was Anthony. You know what I mean? Like, that's how it was.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You don't need introductions. You don't need anybody, you know, but now Ronnie went on as my rabbi because he's got somebody whose ears to the street, meaning he's not going to ask his son. He's the prince. This guy's got a bookmaking operation that can destroy third world countries. You know what I mean? And who's he got? Who's going to go shake the drug dealers down? Who's going into East New York, his old school territory? I am.
Right.
Never asked me for $1. Never actually gifted me things. Like, he'd give the crew like keychains for Christmas one year, nickels and diamonds or wallets, or, you know, real nice stuff, you know. The crew never got shaken down, you know, and it's pretty insane to show you how powerful he was. There was 2 wise guys and a skipper and him in one crew. That's not even supposed to be.
Really?
You're supposed to get split. One guy gets straightened out, he gets split up. He goes to with the guy in Staten Island. We had 2 main guys, a skipper, an acting skipper, and him. Skipper.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like, and this was our crew. And then there was me, you know?
Okay.
And I never went on record because I was a drug dealer. And I was shaking drug dealers down, and I was shaking drug dealers down. But then when Ronnie goes away, Alphon uses the excuse because then that's when they put the rule in. If you get caught selling drugs, you get shelved for 5 years.
Okay.
Meaning
I didn't know that.
you get put in the back burner for 5 years to get talked about getting straightened out again. But the thing was, the way I presented myself, all the years I ran around with Ronnie, all the years I ran around without anybody, I got treated like that anyway. Never got asked to walk away when wise guys were talking. Never got asked to walk away when wise guys got introduced. I tell everybody, the only sit down I was probably never at was when Junior was boss. Big things were going on. Mikey Scars was a high, powerful captain at the time. I knew he was the power of the family. I was always the guy they put in the room, and I could tell you who was pulling the strings, who was. Mikey Scars was powerful. And he was restructuring the family. He was doing what Joe Messina was doing. No more weddings. No more funerals. Social clubs got to start to close. No more hanging out in front of the pizzerias. No more clear socks. That was the funniest one I've heard of all. The wise guys used to wear clear socks.
Clear socks?
Yeah, clear socks.
Yeah.
Yeah, they always used to wear clear socks. No more parachute suits. They're gone. Sergio Tacchini, stud ones, they're gone. They were restructuring the whole thing that Joe Messina was getting slack about from the rest of the families that he was doing for years.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, all right, you get a table, make sure you guys kick money in and you send an envelope for the table. Things like that. And that was probably one of the only sit downs that I didn't go to. Because now, Junior goes away, Pete becomes acting boss, Uncle Pete now. Now, Pete takes the Bergen over. Now, to me, the Bergen's the Mecca, right? There was like Thursday nights we played. So John Sr.'s favorite game was Continental. Continental's a great game. And so we'd go on Thursdays and play there with all us. Tony Roach's kid, Happy, me, Peter, everybody, all from the neighborhood. Now I'm running with Alphonse and his father, strip clubs, the wise guys. I remember we were sitting down with a wise guy from the Bronx. He was a lunatic. And he went to talk to Ronnie one-on-one. And I actually put this in my book. I haven't even talked about it. And wherever Ronnie went, I was at his side because I didn't drink.
Okay.
I didn't get high, I didn't drink. So I was always on point. I'm a control freak. So I knew 3 guys were at a place. I knew one guy didn't belong there. Like, I was on point with that. So wherever he went, I went. I was up his ass. I didn't let him go anywhere. And so at one point, a skipper comes in, and they're whacking this place up together. They're just taking the place over. I think it was like the week before they threw everybody out of it already. Some guys that had the joint, so they're whacking it up. And I'm following them, walking with them, and the skipper comes over, and his guys, one of them was a mate guy, walked off to the side when he went to talk to Ronnie. So out of respect for the skipper and the Banana family, I stepped back. And not when he came back, not the next day, right there in front of the skipper, he turns around and looks at me and goes, "The fuck are you going?" Really? I said, "He's your friend." I said just like that. I was giving, and I wanted to say him, like you, the respect, but I said I was giving him the respect. Because I know you're going to let me sit there. You're going to talk about anything in front of me.
Right.
But I said I was giving him the respect. He goes, "Who the fuck told you to give anybody respect?" Yeah. He goes, "You're at my side. You don't leave my fucking side. I don't care who comes over. I don't care who I'm talking to." And the next day I was like, I felt proud about it. And even at the time, I knew, and it wasn't like he was giving me a lesson. I knew. But this guy was a powerful cat. This guy was a stone cold killer. The guy killed about 20 people.
Are you allowed to say his name or no?
Johnny Joe's Burrito.
What was it?
Johnny Joe's Burrito.
Okay, and he was from the Bronx?
Yeah. He's like the acting boss now. Guy was a lunatic.
Okay. All right.
There's him, Little Anthony. You know, Little Anthony from the Bronx.
You know, I'm not familiar with the Bronx.
Yeah, Little Anthony's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet.
The majority of the people I'm familiar with are from Brooklyn and Staten Island, to be honest.
So, yeah. So, but that's where I come in. Like, I was so well-rounded with people from everywhere. You know what I mean? They make a difference where you were from. Okay. I just didn't, you know, use guys, these Canarsie guys, and I mean, Bensonhurst guys were shooting dope at 16. Like, your neighborhood was off the hook. These guys were crazy. The shit you guys were doing, you guys were knocking over banks on fucking your lunch break in fucking high school. Like, you guys were doing, Brooklyn guys were just, we always said those guys, but the Bronx guys were even crazier than you guys, man. We still call the Bronx a third world country. Yeah. We don't even think they speak proper Italian. Like, the way they talk, it's like, how do they talk? We don't even understand them. Hey, Bo, what you doing, Bo? Hey, Bo, we're at dinner. Guys got $5,000 Brioni suits. Hey, Bo, we're going to go over there. I'm like, what? I'm like, did this guy's got a fucking superstar stuck in his throat?
Yeah.
I was like, I know we're bad the way we talk. This guy, I'm thinking, like, did he just got done watching, like, Sopranos or something?
Yeah.
It was funny. So, and he, like, and then I remember, like, you know, I didn't walk back up on him, but I stopped where I was and stood there. Okay. You know what I mean? And when the conversation was over, he sat down and he said, it's a lesson learned. When you're doing something and that's something you've been doing for a while, don't stop doing it.
I gotcha. Okay.
You know, but I knew it wasn't a lesson I needed to learn. I was just giving the other skipper the respect that when two friends are talking, you're not supposed to be there.
Well, that's what I was always under the impression, you know.
But when you're Ronnie One Arm and you're the most powerful captain in the Gambino family,
then it doesn't matter.
I make the fucking rules.
Yeah,
and Larry, if I think that you belong there and you can listen to whatever the fuck I'm saying, that's what's going to happen. And that was his attitude.
And Larry told me it's the same kind of story, you know, where he had a problem where he got into a fist fight with Castellano's nephew and he kicked the shit out of him.
Oh, and, yeah. I just heard that story the other night.
Yeah.
He almost got clipped over it.
Yeah. And Greg Scarpa was there and Greg Scarpa was not, I didn't know this, but wasn't a boss. And there was this guy, Scappy, who was the actual boss sitting with.
Scappy was a skipper. Scarpa was just the make guy at the time.
Yeah. And I didn't know that. And Scarpa was there and he almost threatened Castellano because Castellano wanted to get Larry. And he said something to the effect of, if you touch one hair on this kid's head, and then Scappy like shut him up.
Yeah.
So, you know,
you hear what happened afterwards?
No. What was that after?
Larry walked outside, but Larry was waiting outside. And Sammy the Bull was there.
Oh, yes. He said,
that was the best part of the whole story.
He said he should have killed the cocksucker.
He deserved it or something like that.
Yeah.
Listen, the one night we get to the beef at the Rayos, right? So Rayos was another thing. It's like the Copa, right? But it wasn't a written rule way. If you got into beef like in the Copa, you got clipped. Which I never understood the rule because
that is the one thing I'm going to be.
Copa, the guy wasn't even a big shot. I mean, he was a wise guy. I just could never understand that rule. There was so many more guys that were heavy hitters.
Yeah.
You got the Mad Hat Albert Anastasia. You know what I mean? Frank Costello. You know, you got these guys that would just. I can tell you this: if I would have gotten into a beef in a Copa, and they didn't send my own guys to clip me, I'm grabbing my guys and we're going to take everybody out and we're going to own the Copa. Because it's like the guy that owned it wasn't really that big of a heavy hitter. That's just the way I see things. But the night that we go into Rayos and we're kids, and Al's the only one straightened out at the time, and it's Vinny Gorgeous. It's the acting boss. God. It's the acting boss of the Lucchese family. Right? The guy Ziggy, a guy from the Genovese family, right? And these guys were all high praising his father, Al. You know, they congratulate him. Al abused Vinny Gorgeous. I mean, he really did. Like, you know, and I remember the story. It was going around. Vinny thought he was bigger than John. This guy wants to be bigger than John. Like, that was the story. This guy thinks he's bigger than John. Now you gotta understand, John's our guy. You know what I mean? Like he's, you know, you got, you know, there's Jesus. But I'm saying is like the pictures that are hanging in your house and in the club.
Yeah.
Right? You got Jesus. You got, you know, Pope John. You know, the right Pope, the saint.
Yeah.
And then John Gotti. You know what I mean? Like, he's right there. You know, and then Sinatra, and maybe my father. You know what I mean? Like,
out of all the stories you just told me, the only thing that I'm jealous of is you got to eat at Rayos. I was never got to eat there. Yeah, I wanted to take my wife there for her 40th birthday, and it was impossible.
Well, it's not the point. You see, the whole thing is the sit down thing got ruined. We ate at the bar, incredible meatballs, but it's retarded because Bo Dietl has a table.
Okay.
And, like, enough said. Who gives a fuck who the fuck that? The thing is, you buy a table. Everybody owns a table. So it's not I mean, they told Joe Torre, right? The story was, and it's the truth. You know how people always exaggerate stories? Joe Torre called, just won the World Series. I want a table for my guys. Sorry, Mr. Torre, try us next year. Oof. You can't give a guy a table if somebody owns a table.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
You know what I mean? Now, if you don't have somebody sitting at that table 7 days a week, then they have the right, because that table has, regardless that you pay for that table every month, that table still has to turn a profit every night.
I see.
You might pay $50,000 a month for the table, but that table has to turn a profit every night.
Mm.
So you're either sending somebody there or a friend's calling you. You know, and there was people that had tables there. You know, John had a table. I don't even think John had a table. I think Vicky, his daughter, had a table there. Mm-hmm. I think that's when she worked with the Daily News. But listen, I got into a big beef the first night. The guy that owned the place, I never watched The Sopranos. So I watched it recently when I came home from the feds. I finally watched the whole thing. I think it's a mockery what they did, the whole 9 yards. A lot of stuff in it they used was real stuff because I know a lot of consultants on it. And I know guys that did the stuff they were talking about that guys in this movie they said did. And the guy's walking around like Stallone did in that last movie where he walks around his restaurant singing. He's walking around and he's singing. And I'm with a kid from the Bronx. He's from Harlem, actually, but he lives in the Bronx. And I'm like, if this fucking guy comes over to me, he's rat cop, like he plays an FBI agent on TV. But I really didn't watch this. I just knew he was the guy that locked on. He was the head guy. I had no idea he was the owner of Rayos. And the kid that I'm telling it to is his first cousin.
Really?
We were with because we were all together. Like the whole thing was together. But I had no fucking idea. I was young, dumb. I'm in Rayos. Let's beef. I don't give a fuck. This ain't the Copa. Like it was just, young and dumb. You know what I mean? And to me, we got the guys. We were the princes. I don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? Ronnie's our rabbi. Ronnie was one of those guys, like after everything happened, we all got sent for the next day separately, right? Because Vinny went back and told on us. I think the acting boss of the Lucchese family told on us. He was very close with Ronnie at the time. And his son was out of line, but he wasn't wrong because he said something. And his father sent him a message. He never got the message back. He was supposed to do something he didn't do. He just took the family over. It was right before they just picked him up and Joe recorded them in MCC. And he told them in front of everybody, he goes, it's the weekend. It was a Friday night. We're all out. We're all having a good time. He goes, we'll talk about it on Monday. And Al turns around, freshly straightened out, says, oh, Vinny, there's no days off in this life. The greatest line ever.
Yeah.
So he's heading into Rayos. We're heading out to Rayos. He makes a beeline. We must have drank 2 bottles of Johnny Blue, 2 bottles of Opus One, and he beelines right back into Rayos. Now, where we were standing, all of a sudden the table appeared like it was Goodfellas. You know when the guy carried the table?
Yeah.
So that we didn't like at all. We were standing up at the bar drinking. These guys got a table at a bar. Both those tables in the way. This fucking guy's a fucking cow. He's a private investigator. The fuck is he? Like, it's just a whole big thing.
Right.
And he goes over to the table and it just gets real. And then now I'm like, listen, we got the Genovese guy. Yeah. And these guys are heavy hitters, and they're very respected guys, and they were old timers. Vinny was wrong. Vinny could have, spoke about it a different way, but I was wrong from jump. So it didn't even matter. He shouldn't even have spoke to him. He's not on their level. You got to know he could have told him, go get your skipper. Because that's another truth. Wise guys can't talk to skippers. Wise guys can't talk to bosses. That's what I was always understanding. I've seen a guy tell a wise guy, I seen a skinny guy tell a wise guy from the Banana family, you can't talk to me. Do me a favor. Go get your skipper and I'll have a conversation with him. This guy was so scared. He told Skinny Don, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a working guy. This guy was a wise guy.
Really?
He says, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a working guy.
Right.
Couldn't believe it. I was like, holy shit. Because this was when he was about to go away. And that's when Ronnie becomes Catholic because he takes his position. Ronnie was with him at the time.
Okay.
He was under him at the time. So, I watched these guys that rose to power and they actually put him off a boss, this guy. Guy said he wasn't even a wise guy. It's just a mockery. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so the next day we all get sent for separately, right? So now I'm like, somebody's finger's getting cut off. Something's going to happen. Somebody's going to ask their feet. And it was always to your house. So if you went to the house, you were only part of the crew. Couldn't go to Ronnie's house if you weren't part of the crew. So I think my appointment was like 8:30 in the morning. I think I got home, like, I just brushed my teeth, guys. Like, what do you work hours? Like, I'm the only guy who didn't drink. So now how is it to stay up and you don't drink or do anything? These guys are out of their minds. You know what I mean? We left Rails after 2 bottles of Blue and 2 bottles of Opus One. I'm like, and that was like the first stop. You know, and we went to another joint that these guys opened in the, forget it. It was insane. And I'm like, I'm first up, 8:30 in the morning. What happened? I'm the first guy you're asking. Oh, he goes, big shots. Put suits on. You know, don't make a difference if you're uptown, if you're in Florida. Everything's downtown. I'll put suits on. You just go downtown like big shots, huh?
Yeah.
And you got the medal on you.
And you're speaking to this is Ronnie you're speaking to?
Yeah. He's abusing everybody, but he's speaking like in the third person.
Right.
You know, I'm like, oh, the Rolexes were on, huh? You get women all over, but the money, what you bring out, 50, 60,000 each, right? Where'd that come from? I didn't get invited. Where was my invite? You know, like, and then he goes in, who the fuck do you think you are? You's a fucking a pimple on my ass, and he's going crazy, right? Tears into it. So, but I'm there because he's not asking me any questions. He's just tearing into it, right? So I got my back to the couch. He's laying on the couch, no shirt on, shirts and bikini pants on, just tearing it. And I'm like, well, listen, I have no fucking idea. I said, I was getting the car. I was like, these guys are drunk. I had no fucking idea. I'm gone. The fucking sit downs were a whole fucking day. He sent for everybody. No,
okay.
We're now Thursday night. Or what was it? No, it was Monday night. So big card. No, Sunday, because I was a Saturday. Big card game Sunday night. It's Continental. So we all go to the club. So we always get there first. It's us 5. We get the first 5 seats. Our crew with him. And he looks up and the TV's hanging and the Met Yankee game, whatever's on. And he goes, I bet you they won't fuck around now. So he was proud of what we did. You know what I mean? So he was always one of those guys that you got to ask for forgiveness, not permission. You know what I mean? Because after all the nonsense, after all of it, and then every little dig, nobody else knew but us. It was always at him. Who the fuck is fucking Vic Gorgeous wear? Fuck him. Like everything was a dick. You know what I mean? And it just, we knew that's who he was, you know, and he was a maniac. The guy fucking used to carry 2 pistols. He had one arm. The guy to me is a legend. I love the guy that did that. And that's where it ended up, you know, and it's like, Al's telling me, I can't you, we had nothing to worry about. I said, 7 hours earlier, 2 of you thought you were getting clipped. I don't want to hear nothing. The driver, the fat fuck that didn't nobody knows, and the guy that you brought that never been out in his life. You know, like I was like, I don't want to hear anything. And I'm using the guy that owns the place. I had no idea who he was. I thought they paid the guys like an actor to walk around and sing. So like that would have been a night if you were at the Copa. That would have been a big fucking problem. You know what I mean? Like I forgot who we were. The guys from the Bronx actually said, the Gambino guys, we should go get machine guns and come back and just machine gun everybody because there's going to be big problems tomorrow. These guys are just out of their fucking minds. Like that's like they were like, we should just come back and machine gun this whole fucking place. There's no Gambinos in there. You know what I mean? These guys were all Gambino guys. Right. He goes, who are they going to send for? Wow. Who are they going to get it? You know, like because it was that like a beef because like he really abused this guy in front of 2 heavy hitters, and this guy just got named boss. You know what I mean? And he straightened out a hot 6 minutes. Yeah. And just at the end of the night, we're all sitting down, we're getting ready to crack the cards, and he just starts digging into Finny courts. And it was. I was like, there you go. Yeah. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. 6 hours to go, 2 of you still using getting clipped.
Yeah. So how much time did you wind up doing?
On the state bid, I did a 2 flat. I got 16 months, and the other one came home in 3.5. And I wound up getting my parole kept getting pushed. The first year I was home, I got 5 assault charges. I was on Rikers Island 5 different times. I couldn't get. That was the one thing about the federal judge. He was he kept telling the prosecutors in the AUSA, he's like, listen, he's like, this guy's not committing organized crime. Actually, he's trying to get his shit together. These guys been in the street his whole life. The guy walks into a store, somebody says something to him. What do you think's going to happen? The guy was very sympathetic of me getting back on my feet, you know? And then had a bunch of skid bids, but it was only that, that 60 months with the feds that I ever did with the feds, and upstate for 2, and then Rikers Island I had a 1 to 3, then I got the year and a day, and then I got the 8. I did the 8 instead on a year. I did a 6-5, did 4 months, did 3 months. Those are the worst, because those you don't even know. You go in for a week and you don't know if you're gonna come home. You know what I mean? Because that's just, as soon as you go in, you're looking for a weapon. That's a new charge, right? 2, 3 guys come after you. You get the best of them. You stab 2 of them. You're gonna get 7 years. Now I'm in there on a violation. I just stabbed 2 guys.
Right.
That's where that's where all my worries were. And I was always 30 used to be the highest classification on Rikers Island. I was always a 27 or 25, and here I am, this 5'6", 132 pound, fasting, green-eyed, light hair, white head. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Who aren't you gonna pick on?
Right, right.
So, and that was always the worry. The worry was because as soon as you get there, you have to. Yeah, you got to think about, listen, it's 7 years, I get 7 years. You're not letting nobody stick no tree up your ass. Yeah. You're not letting nobody stick you, poke you. You're not letting nobody cut your bag and take whatever you got. You're not letting nobody take your minutes. You got it. Because once you become a victim in the state, and then, this is before the feds and learning all about that, you become a victim in the state, you're a victim for every bid you do after that.
Okay.
And it just sucks because you see it. And if you're a street guy, you walk into this building and you see the trouble, and you're like, I might not come home. I'm here on a violation. I just might not make it out of here. They're gonna find the deepest, darkest hole because I'm gonna stab 2 of these guys in their necks. Right. I mean, and you can say, "Oh, shit, these are tough." No, it's survival of the fittest.
You had no choice. Right.
It's either you're gonna get victimized or you're gonna stand up for yourself and have to take another bid.
So combined, how many years did you do?
7, 5.5, 8, 9. With the months and everything, I just did 4 months. Another 4 months just last summer.
Oh wow! I didn't know.
Yeah,
that.
so the main 2 was the tree. The 60 months and the 2 flat. Okay. And everything else is skip bid.
And you never turned state's evidence.
These guys are doing big numbers. I mean, I don't even like to talk about. My time is nothing. The time I got, these guys could have did it standing on the head, but it's my time.
Right.
And I wasn't in no fucking Camp Cupcakes. You know what I mean? Yeah. So.
And you never did. You never turned state's evidence or anything like that.
No, I jumped off a global plea, and people threw me under the bus for that.
Okay.
I get dragged through everything for that. I'm not against what people do and who I associate myself with. Right. I don't judge anybody by what they've done because I've seen the reasons and their reasons, and I've seen how the other side treats people. You know what I mean? And it's not right. Both sides.
And you live in the same.
I'm no judge, jury, or executioner.
I gotcha. Yeah. And you live in the same neighborhood now?
I'm in downtown Brooklyn now. I'm right 560 State Street. I'm right down the block.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you saw my President Street before, I used to pass there all the time.
Oh, okay. All right.
Downtown.
So what is it like? I know you're not going to be able to. You could generalize. I don't want details or names, but what is it like now? Because now it's going to be 2023. The majority of the opinion, in my opinion, is it's not what it used to be. It's a fraction of what it used to be. It's still there, but it's a fraction of what it used to be. What is the life like now?
Well, I still associate. I see people all the time. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm in Cosa Nostra, but in some ways it's worse. I mean, look, these idiots from the Bronx weren't even made. They were half-assed associates, and they killed their own father. Then the one kid tried to kill his own brother after, tried to kill his brother before that. Like, it's a lot worse now because the life is dead, but the people aren't. Therefore, if you got to beef with somebody, they're coming to clip you. That's it.
I was on the
somebody's bell anymore fighting.
Right.
You don't see the guy out at the Cheetah Lounge and you hit him with a baseball or hit him with a bottle of Moet. You know what I mean? Like, that's over with.
I was under the understanding that there's a no kill rule now.
Well, the no kill rule is within the organization, not amongst the beefs. These guys just put on killed their father.
Yeah, I don't know that story.
Yeah, the guy was in which I don't know what he's doing in he liked McDonald's.
Oh, the McDonald's. Okay, I do know that story. Yes.
The no kill rule and the no kill rules, first of all, was 5 years ago. So I don't even know what still stands for that, because there's a bunch of guys home now. There's a lot of guys home.
Okay.
Yeah, but the no kill rule was within the organization. We're not killing anybody over money.
Mm-hmm.
But you sleep with somebody's wife, they're going to clip you.
Right.
If somebody that's doing 20 years and you collect this book, they're going to clip you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's just, it's a lot worse now with that. Before you go to these families, who's having sit downs? You need the Colombo's got 6 guys left. They're going to sit down with guys from the Bananos.
Right.
No, the 6 guys are going to strap up and they're going to go shoot 9 of the Bananos. You know what I mean? Like, that's just what they're going to do.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is.
So there's no rhyme or reason anymore. There's no structure. It's a fucking.
Right. Who's going to sit down?
It's a free for all. Okay.
Who's going to sit? I mean, they just pinched this guy for killing Michael Mellis, right? They put the black guy in the crew, right, from the Purple Gang,
right?
But whatever that gang, they the Lucchese's used them,
right?
And then these 2 kids, the 2 brothers, used the Bloods.
Oh, right. Yes, yeah. Okay, yeah.
You're just gonna see things like that. So it's just what's gonna go on.
Yeah,
I say it every day. But I'm around. I was just on Causeway Boulevard yesterday. I'm all over. It might be some kid that I might have known when he was 5. He's trying to make a name for himself. Listen to me. They're letting people out now for killing people. They're not gonna give a shit who shoots Hootie in the fucking head. And the kid's going to get a great reputation. I had a decent reputation in the street. And that's just the way it's going to happen. I say it. I tell it all the time. It's going to be it's a lot easier today for people to kill people. They're not worried. And the feds aren't trialing murders. They're not taking anybody to trial for murder. Right? With a little Dino from the Colombo, Cetracino's own brother, he beats 3 murders and the judge gives him 50 years for RICO.